Look at this map of California. Between 1974 and 1986, it became the hunting ground for one of the most prolific serial offenders in modern history. The toll is staggering. Over 100 burglaries, more than 50 rapes, and at least 13 murders. Today, we know the man responsible as the Golden State Killer. But if you lived in California during those 12 years, you never heard that name. It didn't exist. Back then, law enforcement operated within rigid municipal borders. Because the attacks happened in different jurisdictions, investigators fell victim to an illusion. They believed they were hunting 3 completely isolated monsters. How does one person execute this volume of organized, escalating violence across an entire state and simply vanish? His ability to evade capture was fueled by a secret. He knew exactly how the people hunting him operated. The pattern began in the farming city of Visalia, right in the Central Valley between 1973 and late 1975. An unknown prowler committed more than 100 break-ins, prompting the local press to call him the Visalia Ransacker. These early crimes were highly psychological. He would rifle through homes, bypass valuables, and steal small, intensely personal items. He left families with the sickening feeling that they were being watched. On September 11, 1975, the intrusion turned deadly. Claude Snelling, a journalism professor, confronted the man as he tried to abduct Snelling's teenage daughter. Snelling was shot twice and died from his wounds, while the attacker fled into the dark. Soon after that murder, the ransacker vanished from Visalia. Investigators were left with an isolated cold trail, unaware he would soon surface again. Look at this aerial view of sprawling, interconnected suburbs. This is the area east of Sacramento in 1976. Here, a new masked phantom emerged. Newspapers named him the East Area Rapist. Over roughly 3 years, he committed at least 51 rapes, plunging the region into total fear. His methods were rehearsed and cold. He stalked the neighborhoods well in advance, learned his victims' daily routines, and cut their phone lines before he broke in. He often targeted couples, binding them to exert complete control over the scene. He showed an uncanny ability to anticipate exactly when police would respond, vanishing before cruisers arrived. In 1979, the Sacramento attack ceased. The predator simply chose to move on, leaving law enforcement with a second massive investigative gap. From 1979 to 1986, the same signature reappeared hundreds of miles south, spanning communities from Galeta down to Orange County. The crimes escalated to their final, most brutal form. He committed at least 10 murders during this period, frequently targeting couples inside their own homes. Unaware of any connection to Sacramento or Visalia, Southern California investigators gave him a third name, the original Night Stalker. Then, after 1986, the state's most prolific violent offender simply stopped. He disappeared into ordinary life. Detectives were left with 3 regions, 3 different task forces, and 0 connection made between them. Which brings us back to the question, how did one man outsmart patrols, maintain absolute control over his crime scenes, and evade capture across 3 distinct jurisdictions for over a decade? The answer is a detail investigators wouldn't uncover for decades. During the crimes, the man they were hunting was an active police officer. He wore the uniform for 2 different Northern California departments throughout the 1970s. He had insider knowledge of exactly how investigations operated, how patrol grids worked, and how evidence was processed. The community's sworn protector was actually its predator. He used his professional training to render himself effectively invisible to his own colleagues. He quietly left law enforcement at the end of the 1970s under unrelated circumstances and faded entirely from view. This is what police work looked like back then. Cluttered desks, analog typewriters, and disconnected physical files. Bounded by paper limitations, the isolated cases stalled, files gathered dust, and detectives retired without answers. For the victims and their families, the ensuing decades were defined by a painful silence. They waited, having no idea who had destroyed their lives. The biological evidence needed to connect the 3 phantoms into one name existed all along, locked in frozen crime scene samples, but the science required to decode it did not yet exist.